Shah of Shahs, King of Kings, Light of the Aryans, Center of the Universe. In 37 years, His Imperial Majesty has learned how to wear a brave face. This week, he needs it more than ever in the biggest crisis of his reign. Behind the crisis is a rebel priest now exiled in Paris, Ayatollah Khomeini, who has called on his supporters to shed torrents of their own blood in the battle to depose the Shah. Inside his palace, the Shah has rejected calls for abdication and placed his final trust in his generals, the military government that now rules in his name. The leaders of the armed forces are hand-picked for their loyalty. For years, the Shah has sweetened them with massive spending on defense and kept them in line with a careful policy of divide and rule. Now the men in the medals and gold braid have the unenviable job of keeping their king in power. But this week, the generals were not enough.
A regime's power is basically the extent to which it commands obedience. And what we have seen today is almost a total, massive case of disobedience. In the Iranian Revolution, we have the richest, we have the poorest together. We have the intellectuals, we have the illiterate together. The whole nation have risen against the system. And in terms of revolutionary history, this is just unprecedented. I think what has basically welded the people together so much is the fact that the regime has for long deprived them of the most basic human need, and that is the need for safety. A minister, a journalist, a navvy working on the street were equally deprived of the right to be safe from persecution, from torture, from arbitrary arrest, and from similar threats. That I see as the principal unifying factor.
In South Tehran, thousands of people still live in mud huts without running water or sanitation. There are more schools, more jobs, more money, but inflation is now running at 35% a year. The building sites in the north of Tehran are the symbol of how Iran has developed. Outwardly, progress and glitter. Beneath the surface, a primitive sewage system and corruption. The capital has not just grown, it has exploded. And in the process, members of the royal family and leading businessmen have made massive profits. The key is planning permission. This is officially classified as grazing land. No one can build on it, but somebody has. In spite of the rush to the cities, there have been tight restrictions on new housing, restrictions that only men of influence could lift. Time after time, speculators have bought grazing land dirt cheap and made a killing. Today, in his palace, the Shah is more alone than at any time in his reign. As public anger against corruption mounts, many of his closest relatives have left the country, and the Shah himself has been forced to go on television, admitting and apologizing for the abuses that have taken place in the period of his reign. Gone are the days of unchallenged authority when the affairs of state could be dropped for a skiing holiday in St. Moritz. Today, the Shah finds himself at the center of a kind of imperial Watergate, protesting his innocence, blaming his mistakes on past advisors, depending on a small band of die-hard supporters. But this week, the voice that may well decide the future of the country comes not from Tehran, but from Paris. This French street is now the base of a religious government in exile, a government that leaves its shoes on the doorstep of a small suburban house as it takes time off for prayer. Ayatollah Khomeini, a man the Western governments may shortly have to learn to deal with. The prospect of an oil state in the hands of a 79-year-old priest may be disturbing, but Khomeini says he does not want power, he simply wants the Shah to go. Ayatollah, how do you see the present situation in your country?
The struggle in Iran against the Shah is now very intense, and with the will of God, it is now moving towards its climax with the removal of the Shah and the establishment of a new, just government.
What future do you see for the Shah? Does he have to go, or could there be a constitutional monarchy?
He cannot continue as Shah. To survive personally, he must flee the country. Otherwise, he will be taken by the people of Iran and punished.
In the Shah's palace, the generals remain calm. There's still a lot of pride in service to the Peacock throne, but today not even the generals know whether this throne will remain the center of power in Iran or become just another piece of history.